Hi guys, so what is toxic metaframing and why do people toxic metaframe? There's indirect toxic metaframings, direct, verbal, non-verbal. And let's just dive into it right from the start for what it is. It's not going to be so easy to understand in the beginning, but once you understand it, it will completely change your view of life. Basically, it works like this. You have unhappy people and you have happy people in life. Happy people are people that know how to create joy and sexuality for themselves in whichever way that is. They might be going dancing, they might be going surfing, they might be meditating in nature. Anything that makes them joy, that gives them joy, true inner joy, where nothing is missing. Okay. And then there's other people who make their life miserable or it just sucks in general, whatever. And unawake, unhappy people, they're suppressing their sacral chakra. I call it suppressing the libido. They're suppressing their sacral chakra where the joy and sexuality lies. And then what they do is, because they feel that other people are responsible for it, they project that onto others. So let's say you're in a relationship and the person tells you you never do anything right. Everything you do is wrong. Okay, that's a form of toxic metaframe. That's one example where the person is unhappy about their life and they're projecting it onto you and trying to suppress you. They're trying to push you down because they cannot bear that you in your position are happier than they are. And so they will try to make sure that you're also unhappy, because it's impossible that you're uglier, you're shorter, you're stupider, whatever, and they wouldn't be able to bear the fact that you could be happy as well. In why you could be happy. So when you're in a relationship where somebody toxic metaframes, by the way, toxic metaframing, because the other person is trying to put you in a larger frame and suppress you down. Things like you're stupid, you never do anything right, or they just might look at you and be like, who is this person? They don't even say anything. There's literally thousands of examples of toxic metaframing. I'd say over 80% of population right now is toxic metaframers, because it has become standardized in society. Now, it's very bad for your energy field, and you should never deal with toxic metaframers. Try to find the 10 to 20% that are not toxic metaframers. The opposite of toxic metaframing is actually compliments. Okay? This is very important to understand. If you want to have a great relationship, just make it from time to time genuine compliments. And people who cannot take compliments, they have a problem. So yeah. So toxic metaframing. What is it and why do people do it? So their libido is suppressed, their joy is suppressed, their sexuality is suppressed. They project it onto someone else, and then they try to push you down. The problem with these unconscious behaviors, even if you told them what they're doing, they would probably become even more aggressive and even more start to gaslight you. But it's your problem. They don't want to see that it's actually their that they're actually the cause of these unhappy feelings. And the only way to deal with toxic metaframers correctly is to physically completely detach. Unless they're an extremely conscious person or just about to become very conscious, then you can tell them, hey, listen, what you're doing is toxic metaframing. It works like this, and we should, you should change that, reflect that. If the person is not able to reflect that, then it's done, basically. Now, a lot of things are toxic metaframing and some things are not toxic metaframing. So, for example, stating a fact is not toxic metaframing. So, if somebody said, you look shitty being bald, that's a toxic metaframe. But if someone were to say, you are bald and therefore you, have less hair, That's not a toxic metaframe, unless it's meant to suppress you, and you usually can feel it's a feeling thing where you can feel that somebody's trying to suppress you, and it's a little bit, you have to figure out the how they're saying it and which way they're saying it. Now there are some type of codependency dynamics which are hard to crack. For example, you love someone from the heart, but they're toxic metaframing you. They're not actually loving you from the heart, because if they're toxic metaframing you, they're not loving you at all. They actually want you to be suppressed in your energy field, and that you have to understand. There's no way to fix this. Just disconnect from physical contact. And there's literally people. For example, another toxic metaframe is I had lots of yoga teachers in the last few months, different ones, and a lot of yoga teachers, we interact and they're very nice to me. I'm very nice to them. I thank them for the sessions, whatever, just very nice conversations, very nice sessions itself. They then thank me in private messages on Instagram, whatever. And I follow them, but they don't follow me back. And the reason they're not following you back is because it's an indirect toxic metaframe. They're basically saying I'm more important than you. And you have to be very careful about these people, because even subtle indicators like this show you that you're actually dealing with this toxic person. And you need to, as a man, you need to leave the idea that women are not toxic. Actually, most women in today's society are toxic. Because they do passive aggressive toxic metaframing. They're just looking for the right opportunity to really, nail it. And you have to be super careful about that. For example, there was this Portuguese pastry chef. She works in very close to here where I am, and she met me on the road. She was a little bit drunk, and felt like she was hitting on me, at least a little bit, not much. And then I told her over WhatsApp. I also have WhatsApp, and she wanted to go out that evening to a concert. I said concerts are not really for me, blah blah blah. So plus I don't like drunk women anyway. So she gave me her number, and I saw her in WhatsApp, and I wrote her message, I have WhatsApp too. And that was it. And she reads the message and doesn't respond for at least 2 days. And that in itself is also an indirect toxic metaframe, because a normal conversation is like, hey, thank you for the WhatsApp, nice to be in touch, okay, and that's it. For example, I'll because she was saying she would invite me for a coffee. Then I was like, then she could write, I'll let you know when I'm ready for the coffee or something, But just ignoring the message is basically saying I'm more important than you are. I don't have to respond at all. And now the thing is, a lot of people think that reacting to toxic metaframing is overreacting, in the sense like, okay, I'm physically disconnecting from her because she didn't respond. Now, the thing is that if you respond too late, you're going through a whole bunch of pain. And by responding very quickly, understanding who's a toxic metaframe and who isn't, you can quickly disengage from toxic people. And I mean, she was a lot of older women also toxic metaframers, so it's not a question of age. A lot of young women are as well. Men are also toxic metaframers in certain situations. So everybody, I'd say 80% in general, are toxic metaframers. Now, in France, there is something which I call passive-aggressive toxic metaframing. They pretend to be super nice. And I really like, almost like if they're friends and stuff, they're laughing at you. You start with the bonjour, and you kind of like, and then you feel like they don't want to have anything to do with you. That's kind of like passive-aggressive toxic metaframing. And a lot of the women that do this, I believe it comes out of hatred and feminism and hatred towards men. And it's below the surface. I noticed, for example, that certain places only favor women in a way, and certain women only favor women, and it feels a little bit strange, because and it's very it's become so common to toxic metaframe and toxic metaframe men, that you have to just be careful about it. So physical disconnection, understand that toxic metaframing is the basis of a toxic relationship. If it's done all the time, it becomes narcissism, and that understanding it really saves you from all kinds of troubled relationships. And women who cannot stand or cannot deal with compliments, I'm talking as a man now, they are not good for a relationship. They're basically, if they cannot get the opposite of toxic metaframing is compliments. And by the way, an insult doesn't always have to be a toxic metaframe. It's sometimes, most of the time it is, but it doesn't have to be. A typical toxic metaframe towards a son would be, or towards a daughter, you're never going to amount to anything. What you're doing is absolute bullshit. Whatever. On the internet, it has become very common to toxic metaframe, because there's a lot of unhappy people and they feel protected by this anonymity. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit about toxic metaframing here. Maybe something else also. It realize the codependency that you might be caring for someone, but they're toxic metaframing you, and you're not realizing that it's not doing you good. I'm telling you, there's 10-20% of people out there not toxic metaframes, and you want to only stick to them. Now, the same is, for example, Andrew Tate has been toxic metaframing his brother Tristan a lot. I haven't seen him do it anymore, but it used to be like that a lot. So you want to, you have to realize that it happens also within families. And it's not something that you should be fighting through. It's not something you should be accepting. If you're accepting it, you're accepting basically that your energy field is being destroyed slowly. So and then if you don't feel worth enough, you stick as a codependency in that relationship. And what's behind it is also, if you can't escape that relationship, is because you feel like you cannot be happy on your own, and that's a fallacy. For that, there is spiritual awakening.